The silent voice. The August heat in Millbrook, Texas hung thick enough to choke on. The kind of heat that made asphalt shimmer like water and turned steering wheels into branding irons. On the eastern edge of town where the sidewalks gave up and gravel took over, the steel Brotherhood Motorcycle Club's garage sat baking under a merciless sun. Cole Matthews stood with his forearms buried in the engine of a 1989 Harley Softail that had more problems than solutions. 48 years old with a Marine Corps tattoo faded to blue-gray on his left shoulder and hands scarred from 1,000 repairs and a few ill-advised bar fights from his younger days. Sweat dripped from his forehead onto the hot metal. He cursed quietly, wiped his brow with the back of his wrist, and that's when he saw her. A small silhouette in the bright doorway backlit by the afternoon sun, so she was mostly shadow. For a moment, he thought the heat was playing tricks on him. Too many hours squinting at engine parts, too little water, too much Texas summer. But then she took a step forward, and the shadow became a child. 6 years old, maybe 7. Dark curly hair pulled back in puffs that had clearly started the day neat, but were now coming undone coils sticking to her sweaty forehead. She wore a pink dress with small flowers on it, the kind little girls wear to Sunday school, except this one had dirt smudges across the front and a small tear near the hem. In her left hand, she clutched a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days, one ear, half detached, matted, and gray in places. Her feet were bare. That's what Cole noticed next. No shoes, no socks, just small, dirty feet on the oil-stained concrete floor, and he knew immediately that something was very wrong with this picture. Behind Cole, conversation died. Ghost lowered his beer bottle slowly. Priest pushed back from the workbench where he'd been sorting bolts. 3 grown men suddenly aware that this child shouldn't be here, that her presence meant something had gone terribly wrong somewhere. The little girl stood there, swaying slightly, like she wasn't entirely sure her legs would hold her. Her eyes were huge in her small face, scanning the garage, taking in the motorcycles, the tools, the men, who were now all staring at her. She was looking for something or someone. Her chin trembled once, then steadied, like she'd made some internal decision to be brave. Cole set down his wrench carefully and wiped his hands on a rag, his mind already racing through possibilities. Lost kid, probably. Hurt, maybe. But there was something else in her eyes that he recognized from his own childhood, from mirrors and foster homes and school counselors' offices. Fear. Not the kind that comes from being lost or scraped knees. The kind that lives deeper in bones and blood. He took one step toward her, then crouched down so he wouldn't tower over her, making himself small, non-threatening. The garage floor was hot through his jeans, but he stayed down, stayed at her level. "Hey there," Cole said, his voice rough but gentle. "You okay, little one?" The girl's lips moved, but no sound came out at first. She tried again, her voice barely a whisper, so quiet that Cole had to lean forward to hear her. 6 words that made his blood turn cold. "I can't close my legs." For a moment, the world seemed to stop. The hum of the oscillating fan in the corner, the distant sound of traffic on Route 47, the birds in the elm tree outside, everything faded into a terrible, heavy silence. Cole stayed crouched perfectly still while his mind raced to process what he'd just heard. Behind him, he heard Ghost's sharp intake of breath, the creak of Priest's boots as he moved closer. Without a word, without any signal passing between them, the 2 men formed a half circle around the girl, not crowding her, but creating a wall between her and the open garage door. It was instinct. The same instinct that made wolves circle their young, that made soldiers cover their brothers. Protection. Cole forced his voice to stay calm, steady, even though his heart was hammering against his ribs. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma." She clutched the rabbit tighter. "Emma Hayes." "Emma, that's a real pretty name. I'm Cole." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "Can you tell me what hurts?" She looked down at her bare feet, then back up at him. Her eyes were the deepest brown, like rich earth after rain, and they held something no 6-year-old's eyes should ever hold. Knowledge. The kind that steals childhood and leaves something broken in its place. "Everything hurts," she whispered. "Down there in my legs and my tummy, it hurts to sit. It hurts to walk." Her voice cracked. "Mama says I'm being dramatic, but I'm not. I'm not dramatic." Cole's jaw tightened. He'd been in combat. He'd seen things in Fallujah that gave him nightmares for years afterward. But nothing had prepared him for the sight of this small child trembling in her torn Sunday dress, trying to explain pain she shouldn't even have words for. "Emma, honey," he said gently, "can I see where it hurts, just so I know how to help you?" She nodded slowly and shifted her weight. That's when Cole saw what he'd been dreading. Bruises, dark purple and yellow marks on the inside of her thighs, fingerprint-shaped, unmistakable. More bruising around her knees on her upper arms. Defensive wounds, the kind that come from trying to push someone away. Her dress had hidden most of it, but now in the harsh fluorescent light of the garage, it was impossible to miss. This wasn't a fall from a bike or roughhousing with other kids. This was deliberate. This was systematic. This was evil. Behind him, Ghost turned away, his shoulders rigid. Priest's hands had curled into fists, the knuckles going white. Cole swallowed hard, forcing down the rage that was building like a storm in his chest. "Emma, honey, who did this to you?" The little girl's chin trembled again. A single tear tracked down her cheek, cutting through the dust on her face. "Uncle Ryan," she said so quietly, Cole almost didn't hear it. "But I can't tell. He said if I tell, he'll hurt Mama. He says nobody believes bad girls. He says I'm bad because I let him, but I didn't let him. I didn't." Her voice broke. The stuffed rabbit fell from her hands as she started to cry. Not loud wailing like kids do when they fall and scrape their knees, but quiet, hiccuping sobs that somehow hurt worse to hear. Cole looked up at his brothers, and in that moment they all understood. This wasn't about their code or their club or their reputation. This was about a child who'd walked 2 miles on bare feet looking for help because everyone else had failed her. "Emma," Cole said carefully, "this Uncle Ryan, does he have a last name?" She nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "Foster. Detective Ryan Foster. He has a badge and a gun, and Mama says he's a good man who takes care of us. But he's not good. He's not." The name hit Cole like a punch to the gut. Ryan Foster. The same detective who'd arrested Cole 3 years ago for a bar fight that wasn't even his fault. The same one who'd pulled him over twice last year for expired registration tags that weren't actually expired. The same man who smiled that too white smile at town council meetings and got his picture in the Millbrook Gazette for coaching Little League. Officer of the Year 2 years running. And now Cole understood why Emma had come here to a motorcycle club the town called Trouble. Because sometimes the people wearing badges are the real criminals, and sometimes the only ones who will believe you are the ones society has already cast out. Cole reached out slowly, picked up the fallen rabbit, and handed it back to her. "Emma, listen to me. You're not bad. You are brave, and we're going to help you, I promise." But here's what Cole didn't know yet. Ryan Foster had done this before. In another county, in another state, to another little girl who'd also tried to tell. And the system had helped him cover it up. The system had let him walk away clean, let him change his name, let him start over. And if Cole wasn't careful, the system would do it again. Cole pulled out his phone with hands that wanted to shake, but couldn't afford to. Emma sat on an overturned crate in the corner of the garage, wrapped in priest's leather jacket, even though it was 90 degrees outside. She was shivering anyway. Ghost had given her a bottle of water and a granola bar from his saddlebag. She hadn't touched either. The Child Protective Services hotline rang 4 times before connecting to an automated menu. Press 1 for English. Press 2 for immediate danger. Press 3 for general reporting. Cole pressed 2. The line rang again, then transferred. A new voice, bored and mechanical, asked him to describe the situation. He started to explain child sexual abuse needs help now and got transferred again. Then a 4th time, each new person asking him to repeat the same information, each one sounding less concerned than the last. 45 minutes. That's how long Cole sat on hold, listening to tinny music interrupted every 30 seconds by a recorded voice assuring him his call was important. 45 minutes while Emma sat there small and broken, clutching that rabbit. By the time a caseworker finally picked up, Cole's patience had worn through. He gave them the address, the details, everything. The caseworker said someone would come out within 72 hours to conduct an initial assessment. 72 hours. 3 days. Cole looked at Emma's bruises and knew she didn't have 3 days. He made a decision. "Ghost, get the truck. We're taking her to the hospital." Millbrook General Hospital's emergency room smelled like antiseptic and bad coffee. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in harsh white light. A TV in the corner played the news with no sound. Cole carried Emma in his arms because she said walking hurt too much. The receptionist looked up, saw a man covered in tattoos and motor oil holding a crying child, and her expression went through a rapid calculation. But something in Cole's face must have convinced her this wasn't what it looked like, because she picked up her phone immediately. Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared within minutes. She was maybe 50, Gray hair pulled back in a no-nonsense bun, eyes that had seen too much to be shocked by anything anymore. She took one look at Emma, and her whole demeanor shifted into something fierce and protective. Exam room 3, now. Cole stood to Paolo, but Dr. Vasquez shook her head. You did the right thing bringing her in, but I need to do this examination without you in the room. Hospital policy, and it's better for evidence collection. She glanced at Emma, then back to Cole. I'll take care of her. I promise. Cole nodded and stepped back, even though every instinct told him to stay. He'd been on the other side of this once, 37 years ago. Different hospital, different state, but the same fluorescent lights and antiseptic smell. He'd been 8 years old, sitting in a room just like this one, while a doctor with kind eyes examined bruises and burns and asked questions in a gentle voice that made Cole want to tell the truth, even though his stepfather had promised to kill him if he did. He remembered the fear, the shame, even though the shame wasn't his to carry, the desperate hope that someone, anyone would believe him and make it stop. Most of all, he remembered the doctor finishing the exam, writing notes in a file, and then watching through the window as that same doctor talked to his stepfather. Watched as they shook hands. Watched as his stepfather's face shifted from worry to relief to something darker. And Cole had known, even at 8 years old, that nothing was going to change. That was the day Cole learned that sometimes the system doesn't save you. Sometimes it sends you right back to hell with a smile and a handshake. 40 minutes later, Dr. Vasquez emerged from the exam room. Her face was carefully neutral professional, but Cole saw the tightness around her eyes. She gestured for him to follow her to a quiet corner of the hallway. Sexual abuse, she said quietly. Chronic, ongoing, probably for months, maybe longer. I've collected evidence, documented everything. I'm filing a mandatory report. She paused, glanced back toward the exam room, then leaned closer. This is the 3rd child this year with injuries like this. Similar patterns, similar age. All 3 cases were closed as unsubstantiated. Cole felt ice spread through his chest. What do you mean unsubstantiated? I mean investigated and dismissed. Insufficient evidence, they said. Parents deemed credible. Children deemed unreliable witnesses. The cases never went anywhere. Dr. Vasquez's jaw tightened. I documented everything in those cases too. Good documentation, clear evidence. Didn't matter. Before Cole could respond, the emergency room doors swung open. Police Chief Thomas Wade walked in uniform, crisp, despite the heat expression already settling into something between concern and irritation. He spotted Cole immediately and his eyes narrowed. Cole knew Thomas Wade. Everyone in Millbrook knew the chief. More importantly, everyone knew that Wade and Detective Ryan Foster were best friends. They went fishing together every Sunday after church. Their wives played bunco together on Thursday nights. Their kids had been in the same graduating class. Chief Wade approached with the kind of swagger that comes from 25 years of unchallenged authority in a small town. Cole, heard you brought in a child with some concerns. Mind telling me what this is about? Cole Straygates met his eyes. Emma Hayes, 6 years old. Sexual abuse. It's not a concern, Chief. It's a fact. Wade's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. That's a serious accusation. Who's she saying did this? Ryan Foster. The silence that followed was heavier than concrete. Dr. Vasquez shifted her weight, suddenly very interested in her clipboard. A nurse walking past slowed down, then sped up again. Chief Wade's face rearranged itself into something almost sympathetic. Look, Cole, I know you mean well, but Ryan Foster is a decorated officer. 6 years on the force, not a single complaint. Officer of the year. The girl's probably confused. Kids say things. They mix up their dreams with reality. Could have been anyone. Could have been nobody. Could have been something she saw on TV. Cole felt rage rising in his throat like bile. She's got fingerprint bruises on her thighs. She can barely walk. This isn't confusion. That's for investigators to determine, Wade said smoothly. And I'll make sure it's investigated thoroughly. But Cole, maybe stay out of this one. You've got prior history with Ryan. This could look like you've got an agenda. The chief walked away toward the exam room where Emma waited. Cole watched him go, watched Dr. Vasquez's shoulders slump in defeat, and understood with perfect clarity that nothing was going to happen. The system was going to protect its own. Again, the Shady Pines Mobile Home Park sat on the eastern edge of Millbrook, where the town's carefully maintained image started to fray at the edges. The sign at the entrance had lost its H years ago, and nobody had bothered to fix it. Cole's truck rumbled past identical aluminum-sided homes, some well-kept with flower boxes and fresh paint, others sagging under the weight of deferred dreams and empty bank accounts. Emma sat in the passenger seat, still wrapped in priest's jacket, staring straight ahead, with eyes that looked older than they had an hour ago. Number 47 was third from the end, a single wide with faded blue skirting and a wooden deck that had seen better decades. A rusted swing set stood in the small yard, one swing missing its seat, the other twisted around the top bar like it had given up trying. Cole parked and sat for a moment, trying to figure out what words could possibly make this conversation go the way it needed to go. The front door opened before he could decide. Sarah Hayes stood in the doorway, 29 years old, but carrying the kind of exhaustion that adds a decade to your face. Her dark hair, the same shade as Emma's, was pulled into a ponytail. Her Waffle House uniform was still on from the breakfast shift. She worked doubles most days, breakfast and dinner, trying to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. Cole could see it in her eyes, the same look he'd seen in mirrors during his own lean years. Desperation pretending to be dignity. "Who are you?" Her voice was sharp, protective, but underneath it Cole heard fear. "Name's Cole. I've got your daughter. She came to my garage this afternoon. She's hurt, ma'am. Hurt bad. I took her to the hospital." "You took my daughter where—" Sarah was down the steps now, moving fast. "You had no right. No right at all. Emma, get out of that truck right now." Emma didn't move. She pressed herself against the passenger door like she was trying to disappear into the upholstery. Cole kept his voice level. "Mrs. Hayes, your daughter has been sexually abused. The doctor confirmed it. She told me it was Ryan Foster. She needs protection." "Stop." Sarah's hand came up like she could physically block his words. "Just stop. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but Ryan has been good to us. Better than good. Nobody else wanted a single mom with baggage. Nobody else looked twice at me after Daniel died, but Ryan did. He stepped up. He takes care of us." "Ma'am, please listen." "No, you listen." Sarah's voice cracked. "Daniel put a gun in his mouth 2 years ago, left us with nothing but debt and questions. I was working 3 jobs, about to lose this place. Couldn't afford daycare. Ryan helped. He paid off our bills. He watches Emma when I'm working. He's been a father to her when her real father chose a bottle and a bullet over his own family." Cole could see it now. The architecture of denial that Sarah had built brick by brick. She couldn't afford to believe him. Believing him meant her judgment had failed, meant she'd chosen wrong, meant she'd let a monster into her home and called him savior. Some truths cost too much to accept. "Mrs. Hayes, I understand this is hard, but your daughter—" "My daughter has an imagination. She watches too much TV. She gets confused." Sarah was crying now, but her voice stayed hard. "You people are just trying to cause trouble. Ryan warned me this might happen. He said Steel Brotherhood has been harassing him for years. Said you tried to turn people against him because he arrested some of you. This is revenge, isn't it?" Cole felt something inside him break. Not anger anymore, something worse. Futility. "Look at her bruises. Look at her. She can barely walk. She fell off her bike last week. Kids fall. Kids get bruises. These aren't bike bruises." Sarah's face hardened into something desperate and ugly. "You're poisoning her mind. You're putting ideas in her head. Emma, baby, did this man tell you to say things about Ryan? Did he tell you to lie?" From inside the truck, so quiet Cole almost didn't hear it, Emma whispered, "I'm not lying, Mama." "Get out of that truck now." Emma started to cry, clutching the door handle. "Please, Mama, please don't make me. He hurts me. He hurts me so much." Sarah yanked the truck door open, reached in, grabbed her daughter's arm. Emma screamed, a sound that would haunt Cole for the rest of his life. She wrapped her arms around Cole's leg, holding on with everything she had. "Please," Emma sobbed. "Please don't leave me. Please, I'll be good. I'll be so good. Just don't leave me with him." Cole looking down at this tiny child clinging to him like he was her last hope, then up at her mother who couldn't see past her own survival and felt a helplessness so complete it was like drowning. He had no legal right to this child. He wasn't family, he had no authority. And if he tried to keep her, he'd be the criminal, not Ryan Foster. Sarah pried Emma's fingers loose one by one. "You're making this worse. Let go. Let go right now." Cole forced himself to release Emma, even though every cell in his body screamed to hold on. He watched Sarah half carry, half drag her daughter toward the trailer. Watched Emma reach back toward, her face twisted in terror and betrayal. Watched the screen door slam shut. And then he saw the patrol car pulling up, white and blue, Millbrook Police Department emblazoned on the side. Ryan Foster stepped out, all 6'2" of him uniformed, perfectly pressed, that smile already in place. He raised one hand in a friendly wave, like Cole was a neighbor, like they were buddies. Ryan walked past Cole's truck close enough that Cole could smell his cologne. "Appreciate you bringing Emma home," he said pleasantly. "Kids wander off sometimes, don't they? Good thing there are concerned citizens around. You have yourself a good evening now, Cole." He disappeared inside the trailer. Through the window, Cole could see Emma backing away, could see Ryan's hand on her shoulder, firm and possessive. Cole sat in his truck, hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. His whole body shook with rage and helplessness and something darker. He'd failed. The system had failed. And tomorrow, Ryan would take Emma somewhere Cole couldn't follow, destroy whatever evidence remained, and continue doing what he'd been doing. Unless someone stopped him. Cole started his engine and drove away, but his mind was already moving in a different direction. He had 72 hours, maybe less, before Ryan could destroy evidence and move Emma out of state. So he did something that could send him to prison for life. He called the only people more dangerous than cops: other survivors. By 9 that night, every member of Steel Brotherhood Motorcycle Club sat around the scarred wooden table in the back room of their clubhouse. When bikers call an emergency meeting, they call it church. And church was now in session. 6 men total, ranging from Ghost at 26 to Priest at 53. All of them understanding that what happened in this room would determine whether a 6-year-old girl lived or died by inches in that trailer. Cole stood at the head of the table, still wearing the same grease-stained shirt from that afternoon, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 5 hours. We all know what we saw. We all know what the hospital confirmed. And we all saw how the system responded. He paused, looking each man in the eye. "I'm not asking any of you to do anything illegal, but I'm also not walking away from this. So if you want out, now's the time. No judgment, no hard feelings." Nobody moved. Ghost cracked his knuckles. Priest leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Tommy Bulldog Warren, the club's sergeant-at-arms, was already checking his phone for equipment they'd need. "All right then," Cole said quietly. "Ghost, what can you find?" Ghost was the youngest member of Steel Brotherhood, baby-faced and soft-spoken, the kind of guy who looked like he'd get lost in a library and be perfectly happy about it. What most people didn't know was that before Ghost washed out of the NSA over a disagreement about domestic surveillance protocols, he'd been one of their best analysts. He knew his way around databases and firewalls the way other men knew their way around engine blocks. His fingers moved with practiced precision, opening windows, running searches, pulling threads that most people didn't even know existed. Ryan Andrew Foster, age 34, Millbrook Police Department for 3 years. Before that, Phoenix County Sheriff's Department in Arizona. Ghost paused, squinting at his screen. "That's interesting." "What's interesting?" Cole leaned forward. "His employment records in Phoenix County end abruptly. No explanation, just transferred to Millbrook 3 months later." Ghost opened another window. "Let me check their incident reports. See if there's anything tied to his name." The room fell silent except for the clicking of keys and the low hum of the laptop's fan. Minutes passed. Ghost's expression shifted from concentration to something darker. "Found it. Sealed file, but not sealed well enough. 7 years ago, complaint filed against Deputy Ryan Brennan, that's his original name, by a woman named Jennifer Hastings. Allegation of sexual abuse of her 13-year-old daughter, Kayla. Investigation opened by Internal Affairs." Ghost scrolled down, his jaw tightening. Investigation closed 2 weeks later. Insufficient evidence. Files marked for destruction. Records indicate they were lost in a server migration 6 months ago. "Lost," Priest said, his voice flat. "How convenient." Ghost kept digging, pulling up social services records, cross-referencing names and dates. A pattern began to emerge, clear as fingerprints on glass. Ryan Foster, or Ryan Brennan as he'd been known, targeted single mothers. Women who were vulnerable, isolated, desperate. Women who needed help so badly they'd overlook warning signs. Women who couldn't afford to lose their lifeline, even if that lifeline was slowly destroying their children. 5 documented cases in Phoenix County, all closed as unsubstantiated. 3 complaints that never made it past the initial report. 1 mother who withdrew her allegations after her car was mysteriously vandalized, and her employer received an anonymous tip about drug use that cost her the job. "He's got a system," Ghost said quietly. "He picks victims who won't be believed. Kids from broken homes, mothers with histories, with bad credit, with ex-husbands who bailed. He positions himself as the good guy, the rescuer makes himself indispensable. By the time the abuse starts, these women are so dependent on him, they can't see what's right in front of them. And if anyone tries to report, he's got the badge and the reputation to make the complaints disappear. Priest, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. How many kids are we talking about? Ghost's fingers stilled on the keyboard. In Phoenix, 5 confirmed victims. Could be more. Here in Millbrook Drive, Dr. Vasquez mentioned 3 cases this year with similar injuries. All closed as unsubstantiated. Add Emma, that's 4. Plus however many never reported at all. The weight of that number settled over the room like a physical thing. 9 children, maybe more. 9 childhoods destroyed while a system designed to protect them looked the other way because the predator wore a badge. Cole's hands curled into fists on the table. Can you pull his transfer records? Find out who approved moving him to Millbrook despite these complaints. Already on it, Ghost muttered. He opened another series of windows, pulled up personnel files, authorization forms. Transfer request approved by Phoenix County Sheriff Marcus Webb. Letter of recommendation signed by the same. Ghost's eyes narrowed. Millbrook Police Chief Thomas Wade hired him based on that recommendation. They're fishing buddies now, by the way. Have been since 6 months after Ryan arrived. So Wade knew, Bulldog said. Maybe, maybe not. But he definitely knows now, and he's choosing to protect Ryan anyway. Ghost leaned back, rubbing his eyes. I can get you evidence. I can document the pattern. But here's the problem. Everything I just found, I found by going places I'm not supposed to go. None of this would be admissible in court. We use it, and Ryan walks while I go to prison for hacking government systems. The room went quiet again. They all understood the impossible math. They had proof, but proof they couldn't use. They had truth, but truth the system wouldn't accept. Cole looked around the table at these men, his brothers, every one of them carrying their own scars from their own wars. So we find evidence they can't ignore. Evidence so clean, so undeniable that even a corrupt system can't bury it. He paused. I need a vote. This goes wrong, we all go down. It goes right, we might save that little girl and God knows how many others. But either way, there's no going back after this. One by one, hands went up. All 6. Unanimous. Then we finish this, Cole said. Ghost kept typing, his face illuminated by the pale glow of his screen. He'd found something else in those sealed files buried deeper than the rest. A name that would make this case explode beyond Millbrook. That would reveal connections reaching higher than any of them imagined. But first, they needed evidence the system couldn't ignore. Evidence that would force even the most corrupt officials to act. And Cole had an idea of how to get it. For 72 hours, someone from Steel Brotherhood watched the Hayes trailer. They worked in shifts, 2 men at a time, parked in different locations to avoid suspicion. Ghost sat in a pickup truck, 3 lots down, laptop balanced on his knees, monitoring traffic patterns and police scanners. Bulldog took position in an abandoned trailer across the street, the one with the foreclosure notice yellowing in the window. Cole and Priest rotated through, sleeping in 2-hour bursts, living on gas station coffee and cold sandwiches. They watched Sarah leave for her shifts at the Waffle House, watched neighbors come and go, watched Ryan's patrol car pull up twice on official visits, staying for 15-20 minutes at a time. They documented everything. Times, dates, vehicle descriptions, who came, who left, how long they stayed. Building a timeline that might mean nothing in court, but meant everything to them. Day 3, Tuesday afternoon. Ryan arrived in his personal vehicle. No uniform this time, just jeans and a polo shirt, looking like any other boyfriend stopping by. Sarah's car was in the driveway. Through binoculars, Cole watched Ryan on the front porch talking to Sarah. Watched her nod, grab her purse, head to her car. She pulled out and drove toward town. Probably sent on some errand. Some convenient excuse to get her out of the house. Ryan went inside. The door closed. Through the window, Cole could see Emma sitting on the couch, still in her pajamas, even though it was past 3. He saw Ryan's shadow move across the living room, saw him stop in front of Emma, saw the shadow lean down. Cole's hand was on the door handle before he even realized he'd moved. Every muscle in his body screamed to cross that street, kick down that door, and pull Ryan Foster apart piece by piece. His vision narrowed to a tunnel. His breath came fast and shallow. Priest's hand clamped down on his shoulder. Not yet. We lose our heads, we lose everything. He's in there with her right now. I know. But if we go in there, we've got nothing that holds up. We're just bikers breaking into someone's home. Ryan spins it as harassment, as stalking. Emma gets sent back to him anyway, and we're in jail where we can't help her at all. Cole knew Priest was right, hated that he was right. But knowing and accepting were two different things. He watched Ryan's shadow move toward the back of the trailer, toward where the bedrooms would be. Watched Emma's small silhouette follow. Slow, reluctant. "We need better eyes," Priest said quietly. He reached into his bag and pulled out equipment that looked military grade, because it was. Telephoto lens camera, the kind Army Rangers use for reconnaissance missions in places the government pretended they'd never been. Priest had been in those places. He'd seen things and done things that woke him up at 3 in the morning, sweating and reaching for weapons that weren't there anymore. He set up the camera in the window of the abandoned trailer, adjusting the angle until he had a clear line of sight into Emma's bedroom window. The blinds were open. Ryan probably didn't think anyone was watching. Why would he? He'd gotten away with this for years. Through the telephoto lens, everything became crystal clear. Ryan entering Emma's room, the bedroom door closing behind him. 18 minutes. Cole counted every single second of those 18 minutes. His jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. 18 minutes that felt like 18 hours. When Ryan emerged, he was adjusting his belt. He walked back through the living room, paused at the refrigerator, grabbed a beer like he lived there, like he had every right. He sat on the couch, turned on the television, completely relaxed. Priest kept the camera rolling. Through Emma's window, they could see her on her bed. She'd curled into a ball, arms wrapped around that stuffed rabbit, rocking slightly. The kind of rocking that happens when your body is trying to self-soothe, but nothing helps. When you're 6 years old and the person who's supposed to protect you sent your protector away, and the monster came back. Cole turned away from the window, pressed his forehead against the wall, tried to breathe through the rage. Behind him, he heard the steady click of Priest's camera, capturing frame after frame after frame. 20 minutes later, Sarah's car pulled back into the driveway. She went inside carrying grocery bags. Through the binoculars, Cole watched her smile at Ryan, watched Ryan stand and kiss her cheek. The picture of domestic normalcy. Watched Sarah call toward the bedrooms, probably telling Emma dinner would be ready soon. Watched Emma emerge face blank and sit at the table like nothing had happened. Because this was her normal now. This was just Tuesday. Priest reviewed the footage on the camera's small screen, his expression grim. "We've got him entering the room, we've got timestamps, we've got Emma's distress after." "It won't be enough," Cole interrupted. "You know it won't be. Defense says it's circumstantial, says Ryan was just checking on her, maybe reading her a bedtime story. Maybe she was upset about something else. Says we're stalkers with an agenda, that the footage is edited, that we can't prove what happened behind that closed door." He turned to face Priest. "We need something even the most corrupt cop couldn't explain away." Ghost made the call from a burner phone in a Walmart parking lot 30 miles outside Millbrook. The Texas State Attorney General's office had a hotline for reporting government corruption. He'd rehearsed the script 3 times before dialing, keeping his voice neutral, factual, giving them just enough to trigger an investigation without revealing who he was or how he knew. "I have information about child abuse cases being systematically buried by the Millbrook Police Department. Multiple victims' pattern of behavior. Officer involved is Detective Ryan Foster. Chief Thomas Wade has been closing cases as unsubstantiated despite medical evidence. I believe there's financial motivation. Check the bank records. Follow the money." He hung up before they could trace the call, pulled the battery out of the phone, and drove away. It wasn't much, but it was a seed planted in soil that might actually let it grow. 3 days later, Detective Lauren Cross arrived in Millbrook, driving an unmarked sedan with state plates. She was 36 FBI Task Force on crimes against children on loan to the state AG's office for a multi-jurisdictional investigation. She'd seen enough child abuse cases to know the patterns to recognize when local authorities were protecting predators instead of children. The anonymous tip had landed on her desk, flagged as priority because it matched intelligence they'd already been gathering. She came to Millbrook expecting resistance. She came prepared to fight. Steel Brotherhood had been watching for her. Ghost had monitored communications, caught wind of the state, sending someone found her name and her credentials. Former NYPD, specialized training in forensic interviewing, reputation for not backing down. If anyone could cut through Millbrook's wall of silence, it was her. Ghost arranged a chance meeting at Riverside Park, the small playground near the elementary school. Sarah brought Emma there most Wednesday afternoons when she had a split shift, letting her daughter play for an hour of supervised freedom before heading home. Cole made sure Detective Cross happened to be there sitting on a bench with her phone looking like any other person enjoying the spring weather. He'd coached Emma the day before at the grocery store when she and Sarah were shopping. 60 seconds of whispered conversation while Sarah was 3 aisles over comparing cereal prices. There's going to be a woman at the park tomorrow. Dark hair, professional clothes. If she talks to you, if she asks you questions, you can tell her the truth. She's safe. She'll believe you. But only if she asks, okay. Only tell if someone official asks. Emma had nodded, eyes wide and frightened and desperately hopeful. Now Cole sat in his truck 2 blocks away, monitoring through binoculars. He watched Detective Cross approach the playground, watched her smile at Emma, ask casual questions. What's your name? Do you come here often? That's a pretty dress. Simple, non-threatening, building rapport the way trained investigators do. Watched Sarah glance up from her phone, assess the situation, decide it was harmless. What Sarah didn't see was the small audio recorder in Detective Cross's jacket pocket, the kind that would hold up in court because it was legal in Texas to record conversations in public spaces. What she didn't see was Cole's hand on his own recording device, backing up every word in case something went wrong. Detective Cross asked the right questions. Gentle, open-ended, giving Emma space to tell her story in her own words. And Emma, probably sensing this was her last chance, told her everything. Cole couldn't hear the words from 2 blocks away, but he could see Detective Cross's body language change. Could see her posture straighten, her expression shift from friendly interest to focused intensity. Could see the moment she understood exactly what she was dealing with. The conversation lasted 7 minutes. When it ended, Detective Cross gave Emma her card, told her she was brave, told her she'd be in touch. She walked back to her car with the kind of controlled urgency that comes from years of dealing with emergencies without panicking. Cole started his engine, planning to follow at a distance. But before he could pull out, he saw Ryan's truck coming from the opposite direction. Ryan had been driving past the park patrol, en route, or just checking up, Cole couldn't be sure, and he'd spotted the state plates on Detective Cross's sedan. Spotted her talking to Sarah, who was now animated, probably mentioning the nice woman who'd chatted with Emma. Cole watched Ryan's expression change, watched recognition and calculation cross his face. He knew what state investigators look like. He knew why they came to small towns. Traffic lights seemed designed to torment Cole that day. He pulled up behind Ryan's truck at the intersection of Main and 5th, close enough to see the back of Ryan's head, to see him glance in his rearview mirror and recognize Cole's truck. Ryan pulled into the turning lane. Cole had no choice but to follow his route. They ended up side by side at the red light. Ryan rolled down his window. Cole's hand tightened on his steering wheel, but he rolled his window down too. Cole. Ryan's voice was friendly, conversational, the same tone he'd used ordering coffee. Funny running into you. Been seeing you around town a lot lately. Almost like you're following someone. Free country. I can drive where I want. Sure, that's true. It's also true that stalking is a crime. Harassment is a crime. You keep showing up places my family as people might start to wonder about your intentions. Ryan's smile never wavered. Sarah mentioned some state investigator was talking to Emma at the park. Weird coincidence, right? State shows up just after you start sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. Cole met his eyes in the mirror. Maybe they showed up because they heard about a detective who likes little girls. The smile finally dropped. Ryan's face went cold and hard. You're messing with the wrong family, Cole. You think you know something, but you don't know anything. You think anyone's going to believe a bunch of criminals over a decorated police officer? You think that state investigator is going to find anything? Because I promise you, she won't. Ryan leaned closer to his window. Accidents happen to bikers all the time. Motorcycle crashes, equipment failures. Would be a shame if your brakes went out on Route 47. All those curves, no guardrails. The light turned green. Ryan drove away, taking his time. Not a care in the world. Cole's hands were shaking on the steering wheel, not from fear, but from the effort of not turning around and following Ryan, not finishing this the way his rage wanted him to finish it. He pulled into a parking lot, sat there trying to breathe. And that's when Detective Cross's car pulled up beside him. She got out, walked to his window. Her expression was all business. You're Cole, the one who brought Emma Hayes to the hospital. I've read the reports, including the one that got buried. She glanced around, making sure they were alone. Get in my car. We need to talk. 5 minutes later, sitting in Detective Cross's passenger seat with the windows up and the AC running, she turned to face Cole. Ryan Foster isn't his real name. He's Ryan Anthony Brennan, dishonorably discharged Marine. Changed his name legally 7 years ago. He's been flagged by the FBI for 15 months. We've been trying to build a federal case, interstate trafficking pattern of abuse across state lines, potential connections to other offenders. But every time we got close, local police obstructed. Reports disappeared, witnesses recanted, evidence went missing. She paused, studying Cole's face. You just gave us our way in. That recording of Emma, that's a federal victim statement. Combined with what we already have, we can move forward. But I need your help. I need everything you've got. Surveillance footage, documentation, anything. And I need you to trust the system one more time. Cole laughed, bitter and sharp. The system failed that little girl at every turn. I know. I've seen it fail 100 kids. But I'm not Millbrook PD. I'm not protecting anyone. And if what I suspect is true, if Ryan is part of something bigger, we're not just talking about one predator. We're talking about a network. She pulled out a folder, showed him photographs. Different children, different states, similar patterns of abuse. We think there are others, other cops, other authority figures sharing victims, sharing methods. Ryan might be the thread that unravels the whole thing. But we need him alive, Cole. We need him to talk. So I need you to promise me you won't do anything that lets him walk on a technicality. Cole stared at those photographs, at faces that looked like Emma's. Scared, damaged, forgotten by everyone who should have protected them. He thought he was saving one child. But he'd actually stumbled into something far bigger, something darker than he'd imagined. A network that would shock the nation. Small towns have their own circulatory systems, arteries of gossip that pump information faster than any internet connection. By Thursday morning, everyone in Millbrook had heard some version of the story. The bikers from Steel Brotherhood were harassing Detective Foster. Or maybe they were heroes exposing abuse. Or maybe they were criminals with a vendetta making up lies about a good man. The truth depended entirely on who was telling it. The Millbrook Community Forum, a Facebook group with 3,000 members, exploded overnight. Someone posted a vague reference to concerning allegations, and within hours the comment section had become a battlefield. Team Back the Blue posted photos of Ryan at the 4th of July parade. Ryan coaching Little League. Ryan helping elderly Mrs. Henderson change her tire in the church parking lot. See good man, family man, hero in uniform. The accusations were obviously false, obviously motivated by criminals trying to discredit law enforcement. Team Protect the Child fired back with statistics about abuse, about how predators hide in plain sight, about how badges don't make someone trustworthy. They shared articles about other cops arrested for similar crimes, other communities that had defended monsters until the evidence became undeniable. They demanded investigation, transparency, accountability. The moderators tried to keep up, deleting the most inflammatory comments, but it was like trying to stop a flood with a paper cup. By Friday, the group had split into two distinct camps, and the division was spreading through town like a crack through ice. Cole felt it everywhere he went. Friday afternoon, he stopped at Murphy's Auto Supply for spark plugs. Randy Murphy, who'd been selling him parts for 6 years, looked up from the register with an expression Cole had never seen before. Cold, closed. "We don't serve your kind anymore," Randy said flatly. "My kind. People who go after good cops. People who spread lies. You and your club need to find somewhere else to shop." Cole set the spark plugs on the counter and walked out. Down the street at the diner, the waitress who usually gave him extra coffee and smiled when she brought his pie wouldn't make eye contact. At the post office, people moved away from him in line like his presence was contaminating. Saturday morning, Cole came out to find his motorcycle on its side in the parking lot. Deep scratches carved into the tank. Someone had keyed liar into the paint. Ghost's bike got sugar in the gas tank. Priest found his truck's tires slashed. The clubhouse windows got spray painted with blue lines and the words "Blue Lives Matter." Bikers don't. The message was clear. Choose the cop. Choose order. Choose the narrative that lets everyone sleep at night, believing their town is safe and their heroes are real. But some people chose differently. Cole was pumping gas at the Chevron station Sunday afternoon when an elderly woman approached. She had to be 75, maybe 80, moving slowly with a cane. Her church clothes indicated she'd just come from the 11 o'clock service. She looked around carefully, making sure no one was watching, then leaned close to Cole. Her voice was barely a whisper. "My granddaughter told me something about Ryan Foster 2 years ago. She was 9. She said he touched her inappropriately at the police department's youth outreach event. I told her she must have misunderstood. I told her Ryan was a nice man, that she shouldn't say things like that. The woman's eyes filled with tears. I didn't believe her. I chose his reputation over her truth. She doesn't talk to me anymore. Moved away as soon as she turned 18. She reached out, touched Cole's arm with a trembling hand. Thank you for believing. Thank you for not looking away. She walked back to her car before Cole could respond. Before he could tell her that her granddaughter's courage might be what finally brings Ryan down, that it's never too late to believe someone who needs you to believe them. That same afternoon at Millbrook Community Church, Pastor Richard Drummond delivered a sermon that would be quoted in local papers for weeks. His voice rang through the sanctuary, righteous and certain. We live in troubling times, brothers and sisters, times when lawlessness is celebrated, times when good men who dedicate their lives to protecting us are torn down by rumors and lies. I'm talking about the scourge of vigilante motorcycle gangs spreading poison through our community, targeting one of our finest citizens because he had the courage to arrest them for their crimes. The congregation murmured agreement. Detective Ryan Foster is a godly man, a man who serves, a man who gives his time and resources to help the vulnerable. And what does he get in return? Persecution, false witness, character assassination by criminals who know they can manipulate the naive and the gullible. In the third row, three families who'd known Ryan for years nodded along. In the back row, a young mother held her daughter close and wondered if she should have listened when her child said Ryan made her uncomfortable at Vacation Bible School last summer. The town was tearing itself apart. Everyone so busy defending their version of truth that nobody noticed the actual truth slipping away. Nobody noticed that Ryan Foster had stopped showing up for his shifts, that his house lights stayed off after dark, that his truck was parked at odd hours in places it shouldn't be. But while Millbrook argued about reputation and loyalty, and who to believe, Ryan was planning his escape. He'd done this before. 3 years ago in Phoenix County, when the allegations got too close, when investigators started asking questions he couldn't answer. He disappeared for 6 weeks, changed his name, changed his story, found a new town that needed a hero. He knew exactly how to vanish, how to erase digital trails, how to create new identities. And this time he wouldn't leave empty-handed. This time he'd take Emma with him. He'd been grooming Sarah for this possibility since day one, positioning himself as the only stable thing in her chaotic life, making her dependent, making her complicit. When he told her they needed to leave town for a while, that the bikers were dangerous, that Emma would be safer somewhere else, Sarah would agree. She always agreed. And by the time anyone realized what had happened, they'd be gone. Monday morning, day 8. Sarah Hayes walked into the Millbrook County Courthouse with Ryan Foster at her side. She filed for an emergency restraining order against every member of Steel Brotherhood Motorcycle Club, citing harassment, stalking, and threats to her family's safety. The petition claimed the bikers had been following her, intimidating her daughter, and spreading malicious lies designed to destroy her relationship and her peace of mind. Judge Franklin Carter, who'd known Ryan Foster for 5 years and played golf with Chief Wade every other Saturday, granted the order immediately. No hearing required. Emergency circumstances. Steel Brotherhood MC members were prohibited from coming within 500 feet of the Hayes residence, Sarah's workplace, or Emma's school. Violation would result in immediate arrest and jail time pending trial. Cole got the notification at 2:30 that afternoon, delivered by a deputy who wasn't Ryan, a young kid who looked uncomfortable with the whole situation. 500 feet, the distance of less than 2 football fields. The distance that meant they couldn't watch, couldn't document, couldn't protect. Ghost pulled up a map, measured the radius. Their surveillance positions were all inside the restricted zone. The abandoned trailer, the parking spots they'd been using, even driving past on the main road would technically be a violation if they could prove intent. We're done, Bulldog said, staring at the paperwork. He won. He maneuvered us right off the board. Cole didn't answer. He was thinking about Emma, about what would happen now that the only people watching were gone, about how predators operate when they think no one's looking. That night, the temperature dropped and storm clouds rolled in from the west. Cole sat in the clubhouse at 11:15, monitoring the police scanner like he'd been doing every night since this started. The scanner crackled with routine traffic. Domestic disturbance on Oak Street. Possible DUI on Route 47. Nothing from the Hayes address. Then at 11:47, a call came through. Not on the scanner. Those were the official dispatches. This came through Ghost's equipment, the system he'd quietly hacked into that let them monitor the raw 911 calls before they were filtered and assigned. A small voice, terrified and desperate. Please help me. He's hurting me again. It hurts so bad. Please. The biker said to call this number if I needed help. Please send someone. Emma's voice. 6 years old and calling 911 while Ryan Foster did unspeakable things in the next room. The dispatcher's voice came through calm and professional. Okay, sweetheart, what's your address? Emma gave it, her words interrupted by crying by sharp intakes of breath that sounded like pain. And what's the emergency? Ryan, he's hurting me. He won't stop. Please make him stop. There was a pause, then the dispatcher's voice again. Different now. Less professional, more familiar. Is this Emma Hayes, honey? It's Miss Jenny. You know me. Are you having bad dreams again? No, I'm not dreaming. He's really hurting me. Please. Where's your mama? At work. She's always at work when he comes over. Please send someone. Another pause. Cole could hear typing in the background. Then, okay, honey, I'm going to send someone to check on you, but I need you to calm down. Okay, you're going to be fine. Ryan is a police officer. He helps people. He wouldn't hurt you. You're probably just confused. Why don't you go back to bed? Please don't tell him I called. He said he'd hurt Mama if I told. Nobody's going to hurt anyone, sweetie. You just had a nightmare. Try to get some sleep. The call ended. Cole stared at the equipment, waiting for the dispatch to go out, waiting for units to be sent to the Hayes residence for a welfare check. He waited 5 minutes, 10, 15. Nothing. Ghost pulled up the dispatch logs. The call had been marked as non-emergency, possible prank, no action required. The dispatcher's name was listed Jenny Brennan. Ghost ran a quick search. Jenny Brennan, age 41, 911 dispatcher for 6 years. Facebook friends with Ryan Foster. Photos of them at the same family barbecues. Comments on each other's posts. Cole stood up so fast his chair fell over. She buried it. She marked it as a prank and buried it. We can't go there, Priest said, but his voice lacked conviction. The restraining order, we go there, we're done. We lose everything. She called for help, and nobody's coming. Cole was already grabbing his jacket. That little girl is alone in that house with that monster right now, and nobody's coming. Bulldog stood. Ghost closed his laptop. Priest picked up his keys. They all knew what this meant. They all knew they were crossing a line they couldn't uncross. But the alternative, leaving Emma alone while Ryan hurt her, wasn't something any of them could live with. At 3:47 in the morning, 3 motorcycles cut through the darkness toward the Hayes trailer. They parked 2 blocks away, approached on foot. The trailer was dark except for the flickering blue light of a television through the living room window. Cole, Bulldog, and Ghost moved around to the back, where the chain-link fence separated the property from an empty lot overgrown with weeds. Cole cut the fence with wire cutters. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the quiet night. They waited frozen, listening. No response from inside the trailer. They crossed the backyard. Cole tried the back door, locked. But the window to the bathroom was cracked open, probably for ventilation. It was small, barely big enough for Ghost, who was the leanest of them. He climbed through, disappeared inside. 30 seconds later, the back door opened from the inside. Ghost's face was pale. Bathroom door is locked from the outside. She's in there. They moved fast. Cole reached from the bathroom door, saw the hook and eye lock that had been installed on the outside. The kind of lock you put on a shed, not a bathroom. Not unless you're locking someone in. He flipped the lock, opened the door. Emma sat on the bathroom floor in her nightgown, pressed into the corner between the toilet and the wall. Blood streaked her legs. Her face was swollen from crying. When she saw Cole, something between hope and terror crossed her features. You came, she whispered. Miss Jenny said nobody would come. Cole knelt down, made himself small, non-threatening. We came. We're getting you out of here. Mama's going to be so mad. Ryan said if anyone finds out, he'll make Mama lose her job. We'll be homeless. It'll be my fault. None of this is your fault. Not one single bit. Cole held out his hand. Do you trust me? Emma looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she reached out and took it. They moved through the trailer like ghosts. In the living room, Ryan Foster lay on the couch, still in his clothes, one arm hanging off the side. An empty bourbon bottle sat on the coffee table. He was snoring deep and regular. Cole had 30 seconds to make a choice. Take Emma and become a kidnapper, a felon, a man who'd spend the rest of his life in prison. Or leave her here and stay law-abiding while she died by inches, while her childhood was systematically destroyed, while the system continued to fail her. What he did next would either save his soul or destroy his life. Probably both. He wrapped Emma in his leather jacket, lifted her into his arms, walked past Ryan's sleeping form. The floor creaked under his weight. Ryan stirred, mumbled something incoherent. Cole froze. But Ryan just rolled over and kept sleeping, too drunk to register the danger standing 6 feet away. They made it outside. Cole carried Emma to his motorcycle, set her in front of him on the seat. The engine roar shattered the 3 a.m. silence. Inside, the trailer lights came on. The front door burst open. Ryan Foster stood in the doorway, no longer drunk, no longer sleeping. His face was a mask of rage and something else. Fear. The fear of a predator who realizes his prey is escaping. Cole met his eyes across the distance. Come after us. I dare you. He gunned the engine and rode toward the state line with Emma pressed against his chest, her small arms wrapped around his waist. While behind them, Ryan Foster reached for his phone to call in every cop in 3 counties. Cole knew what came next. Manhunt, arrest, federal charges. But for the first time in 8 days, Emma was out of that trailer. And whatever happened next, that was worth it. The manhunt lasted 11 hours. But what investigators found while searching for Cole would blow the case wide open and reveal Ryan's darkest secret. Cole had made the call from a rest stop 15 miles outside Millbrook, while Emma slept against his chest, exhausted from fear and pain and the adrenaline crash that follows survival. Detective Lauren Cross answered on the second ring. He told her everything in 2 minutes flat. The 911 call, the dispatcher burying it, finding Emma locked in the bathroom. Ryan passed out drunk. He told her he was bringing Emma in, that he knew what it meant, that he didn't care. Meet me at the Texas City Field office, Detective Cross said. Don't stop anywhere else. Don't talk to anyone else. And Cole, you did the right thing. The FBI field office sat downtown, a gray concrete building that looked like every other federal building in America, designed to project authority without personality. Cole pulled into the parking garage at 6:43 in the morning. Emma was still wrapped in his jacket, her head resting against his shoulder. Detective Cross was waiting with 2 other agents and a woman in civilian clothes who introduced herself as a forensic interviewer specialized in child trauma. They took Emma, gently speaking in soft voices, promising her she was safe now. She looked back at Cole as they led her inside, her eyes asking the question she was too scared to voice. Are you leaving me too? I'll be right here, Cole told her. I promise. 2 agents stepped forward then, and Cole knew what came next. He put his hands behind his back without being asked. The handcuffs clicked into place, cold metal against his wrists. He was read his rights. Kidnapping, custodial interference, violation of a restraining order, possible additional charges, pending investigation. Each word was technically accurate. Each word meant years in federal prison. But Emma was safe, and that was the only math that mattered. While Cole sat in a holding cell, Emma underwent a forensic interview conducted by specialists trained to extract truth without re-traumatizing victims. The interview room was designed to look comfortable and threatening. Soft furniture, neutral colors, toys available if needed. 2 cameras recorded from different angles, creating a record that would be admissible in any court in the country. The interviewer, whose name was Dr. Sarah Hoffman, had conducted over 300 of these interviews. She'd heard stories that gave her nightmares, seen children who'd been broken in ways that shouldn't be possible. But Emma's testimony, delivered in that small, halting voice, was comprehensive and devastating. She described abuse that had started 6 months after Ryan moved in with them. She described being told it was normal, that all little girls did this with their daddies, that she was special. She described the threats, what would happen to her mother if she told what would happen to her if she didn't cooperate. She described the pain, the fear, the confusion of being 6 years old and knowing something was terribly wrong but having no power to stop it. Dr. Hoffman documented everything. Every detail, every pattern, every piece of evidence that would later form the foundation of a case so airtight that even the best defense attorneys in the country couldn't find a crack. At 7:35 that morning, while Emma was still being interviewed, FBI agents executed simultaneous raids on 3 locations. Ryan Foster's residence, Millbrook Police Department headquarters, Chief Thomas Wade's home office. Ryan's house looked normal from the outside. A small ranch-style home on Maple Street with a well-maintained lawn and an American flag hanging from the porch. Inside, it was staged like a showroom. Everything clean, everything in place, everything projecting the image of a responsible, trustworthy man. But the FBI's forensic team wasn't interested in appearances. They were looking for what people hide. They found it in the basement, behind a locked door that Ryan had told his neighbors was for storage. External hard drives, 7 of them each with terabytes of data, thousands of images, hours of video, multiple children, different ages spanning 8 years. Some files were professionally produced, traded on dark web forums. Others were homemade, recorded in locations the team would later identify as Ryan's previous residence's hotel rooms and the Hayes trailer. The hidden camera footage from Emma's bedroom was particularly damning. Ryan had installed a small camera disguised as a smoke detector positioned to capture everything. The footage confirmed every detail Emma had described, time-stamped and irrefutable. No defense attorney could claim she was confused or lying. The evidence was digital, documented, undeniable. At Millbrook Police Department, agents seized servers and file cabinets, collecting every report, every complaint, every case that had crossed Chief Wade's desk in the past 5 years. They found the pattern immediately. 14 reports of suspected child abuse, all involving similar descriptions, all closed as unsubstantiated, all closed by Chief Wade personally. At Wade's home, forensic accountants found the money. Bank records showing regular deposits from an offshore account linked to Ryan Foster. $127,000 over 3 years. Payments that coincided with cases being closed, evidence disappearing, reports being marked as unfounded. Wade had been selling protection, selling silence, selling children's safety for cash that paid for his boat, his fishing cabin, his daughter's college tuition. The horror of it settled over the investigation team like a physical weight. This wasn't one bad cop and one corrupt chief. This was systematic. This was organized. This was a network designed to protect predators and silence victims. But the real names started emerging from the evidence. Children whose abuse had been documented, buried, and forgotten. 10-year-old Sophia, whose mother had reported Ryan in Phoenix County 3 years ago. The case had been closed. Sophia's family moved away 6 months later, broken and afraid. 12-year-old Jackson, whose behavioral problems at school had been signs of trauma, everyone missed. 9-year-old Lily, who tried to tell a school counselor and been accused of seeking attention. 7-year-old Noah, whose foster parents had filed reports that went nowhere. Each name represented a childhood stolen. Each name represented a failure of every system designed to protect the vulnerable. The team documented each victim with care, reaching out to families, offering resources, beginning the long process of accountability and healing. But the FBI's biggest discovery wasn't on those hard drives, wasn't in the financial records, wasn't in the files at the police department. It was buried in Ryan's military records from 23 years ago. Records that had been sealed, classified, hidden behind bureaucratic walls that required federal warrants to penetrate. A secret so explosive it would reach the U.S. Senate and expose a cover-up that went far beyond one small town in Texas. The military records arrived at the FBI field office in a sealed envelope marked with classification stamps that had expired 6 months earlier. Someone in the Department of Defense had been sitting on a warrant request, dragging their feet, protecting institutional reputation over justice. But once the scope of the case became clear, once senators started asking questions about how a known predator had slipped through the cracks, the records materialized with sudden bureaucratic efficiency. Detective Cross opened the file and started reading. With each page, the picture became clearer and uglier. Ryan Andrew Foster didn't exist until 7 years ago. Before that, he was Ryan Anthony Brennan, United States Marine Corps, stationed at Camp Pendleton, California. His service record looked exemplary for the first 4 years. Commendations, promotion to corporal, exemplary conduct ratings. Then 23 years ago, everything changed. A complaint filed by Staff Sergeant Robert Hastings alleged that Corporal Brennan had sexually assaulted Hastings' 13-year-old daughter during a family event at base housing. The girl's statement was detailed and credible. Physical evidence supported her claims. The Naval Criminal Investigative Service opened a case file that should have led to court-martial and prison time. Instead, Brennan received a dishonorable discharge for conduct unbecoming a Marine. Military speak designed to bury the details, protect the institution, avoid the publicity of a full trial. He was discharged quietly. No criminal charges filed in civilian court. No sex offender registration. Nothing that would follow him into civilian life beyond a discharge status that he could explain away as personality conflicts or minor infractions. The system had given him a fresh start, and he'd used it to refine his predation. Ryan Anthony Brennan legally changed his name through a court in Nevada, a jurisdiction known for processing name changes with minimal scrutiny. He became Ryan Andrew Foster. New name, new background check that showed nothing because databases didn't communicate across state lines the way they should. He applied to law enforcement agencies, leveraging contacts he'd made during his military service. Other veterans who'd gone into police work who vouched for him, who didn't ask too many questions. Phoenix County Sheriff's Department hired him 6 years ago. When the complaints started there, when parents began asking uncomfortable questions, Sheriff Marcus Webb himself, a former Marine who believed in taking care of his own, helped facilitate a quiet transfer. A letter of recommendation that mentioned none of the allegations. A personnel file that had been selectively edited. Another fresh start in Millbrook, where Chief Thomas Wade accepted the recommendation of a fellow law enforcement officer and asked no follow-up questions. But the deepest revelation was still coming. FBI investigators pulled phone records, financial transactions, family trees. And they found the connection that explained how Ryan had operated with such impunity for so long. Jenny Brennan, the 911 dispatcher who'd buried Emma's desperate call for help, wasn't just Ryan's friend. She was his half-sister, same father, different mothers. They'd reconnected 80 years ago through a genealogy website, discovered their shared parentage, and maintained a relationship that no one in Millbrook knew about. When Ryan moved to Millbrook 3 years ago, Jenny was already working as a dispatcher. She became his early warning system, his first line of defense. Every 911 call that mentioned Ryan's name went through her first. She'd reroute them, mark them as non-emergency, lose them in administrative backlogs. She'd been doing this for 3 years, systematically protecting her brother while children suffered. Bank records showed Ryan had paid her $43,000 during that time. Insurance against exposure, payment for silence. The final accounting was staggering. 14 verified victims across 3 states, California, Texas, and Oklahoma. Children whose abuse had been documented, whose voices had been ignored, whose cases had been buried by people who should have protected them. 27 additional suspected cases still under investigation. Children who'd shown signs of trauma, whose families had made informal complaints that never became official reports, whose suffering had been invisible to everyone except the predator who caused it. And the network was bigger than anyone had imagined. Phone records revealed communications with 6 other law enforcement officers across 4 states. Officers who were now under investigation. Officers who may have been doing exactly what Ryan had been doing. Sharing methods, sharing victims, sharing silence. The FBI had stumbled onto something that would make national headlines for months. A network of predators hiding behind badges protected by a system that valued reputation over truth. And it had taken one 6-year-old girl walking barefoot to a motorcycle club for anyone to finally listen. In a hotel room on the outskirts of Millbrook, Sarah Hayes sat on the edge of a bed and tried to understand how she'd missed everything. The FBI had taken her statement and shown her evidence she couldn't deny, walked her through timeline after timeline of abuse that had happened in her own home while she worked double shifts to keep food on the table. She'd genuinely not known. The FBI psychiatrist confirmed it. Sarah wasn't complicit in the way Chief Wade was complicit. She was a victim of manipulation. A single mother so desperate for stability that she'd ignored warning signs, dismissed her daughter's behavioral changes, believed Ryan's explanations because believing anything else meant admitting her judgment had failed catastrophically. But not knowing didn't erase the guilt. Didn't change the fact that her daughter had been tortured while Sarah chose to see what she wanted to see. Didn't undo the moment when Emma had begged for help and Sarah had called her a liar. The breakdown was complete and devastating. Sarah couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, spent hours rocking and crying, repeating over and over that she was sorry, that she should have known, that she'd chosen a monster over her own child. The FBI arranged for psychiatric care crisis intervention because Sarah Hayes was a suicide risk and they needed her alive to testify. Back in Millbrook, the community was experiencing its own reckoning. The FBI's investigation had expanded beyond Ryan and Chief Wade. They were interviewing every officer who'd handled abuse reports in the past 5 years. Every school administrator who'd received complaints and done nothing. Every mandatory reporter who'd seen signs and stayed silent. Every neighbor who'd heard things and looked the other way. The local newspaper, which had published glowing profiles of Detective Foster, now ran front-page stories about systemic failure and institutional betrayal. The town council called emergency meetings. The state attorney general announced a comprehensive review of child protection services across the region. 2 school principals resigned. The head of county social services was placed on administrative leave. But the questions lingered heavy and accusing. How many people had known and said nothing? How many had suspected and chosen comfort over conscience? How many times had Millbrook collectively decided that protecting its image was more important than protecting its children? The FBI's Victim Services Coordinator began reaching out to families offering counseling resources validation. For years, these parents and children had been told they were wrong, that they'd misunderstood, that their memories couldn't be trusted. Now finally someone was telling them the truth. You were right, we failed you, and we're sorry. But Emma was safe. Her forensic interview had been completed. She was placed in emergency foster care with a family trained in trauma-informed care, a couple who understood that healing takes time and setbacks are part of the process. She asked about Cole every day, asked when she could see him, asked if he was in trouble because of her. And Cole was in trouble, deep trouble. Because while Ryan was finished, while the evidence against him was overwhelming and irrefutable, Cole had still committed felony kidnapping. He'd violated a restraining order. He'd taken a child from her legal guardian without authority or permission. And the prosecutor, despite understanding why Cole had done it, had no choice but to pursue charges. The national media arrived in Millbrook like a storm front. Satellite trucks lining Main Street, reporters doing stand-ups in front of the police station and the Hayes trailer. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. All the networks that usually ignored small-town Texas suddenly found Millbrook fascinating. The story had everything they needed. Corruption, child abuse, a hero who looked like a villain, a system that had failed spectacularly. The headlines wrote themselves. Outlaw bikers save girl. After system fails. Motorcycle club president faces prison for rescuing abuse victim. When badges become weapons. How one town protected a predator. Within 48 hours, Cole's story had gone viral. 5 million views on the first news segment. 10 million shares on social media. Everyone had an opinion about whether he was a hero or a criminal, whether the law should bend for morality or stay rigid regardless of circumstances. Legal analysts appeared on every news program explaining the complexity with varying degrees of sympathy. Cole had technically violated multiple laws. The restraining order was legally valid when he crossed it. Custodial interference was a felony regardless of motive. Some argued he could face additional charges, breaking and entering, possibly assault, if Ryan claimed Cole had threatened him during the confrontation. The law, they explained with clinical precision, doesn't care about intentions. It cares about actions. District Attorney Patricia Moreno sat in her office and stared at the file on her desk. She was 52, career prosecutor, who'd built her reputation on being tough but fair. She put away murderers, rapists, gang members who terrorized communities. She believed in the rule of law, in the principle that justice couldn't be selective, couldn't depend on whether you liked the defendant or agreed with their choices. But she also had a 13-year-old daughter at home. And every time she read Emma's forensic interview transcript, she imagined her own daughter in that bathroom, locked and bleeding, calling for help that never came. She imagined what she would want someone to do if her child was suffering and the system had failed. Politically, she had to prosecute. The law was clear. Cole had broken it. If she let him walk because public sentiment sided with him, she'd set a precedent that would haunt her office for years. Vigilante justice couldn't be endorsed even when the vigilante was right. But morally, she knew Cole had done what any decent human being would do, what any parent would want someone to do for their child. The pressure came from all sides. Her boss, the Attorney General, suggested she consider the optics, the message it would send if they went hard on someone who'd saved a child's life. Defense attorneys called her, offering to represent Cole pro bono, warning her that this case would define her legacy. Victim advocacy groups sent letters supporting Cole, arguing that prosecuting him would discourage others from intervening when they witnessed abuse. And then there was the public response. Someone started a GoFundMe for Cole's defense. The goal was $50,000 for legal fees. Within 72 hours, it had raised $3.2 million. Donations came from every state, from people who'd never met Cole, who just believed that good people shouldn't be punished for doing the right thing. The comment section was filled with stories. People who wished someone had saved them when they were children. People who tried to report abuse and been ignored. People who understood that sometimes the system fails so completely that individuals have to step in. In Millbrook, 847 residents signed a petition demanding the charges be dropped. They delivered it to the district attorney's office in person, a line of people stretching down the courthouse steps. Some were people who'd initially defended Ryan, who now felt the weight of their mistake and wanted to make it right. Some were parents who couldn't imagine standing by while a child suffered. Some were survivors themselves, finding their voice for the first time. But the legal system doesn't work on feelings. It doesn't work on petitions or GoFundMe campaigns or public opinion polls. It works on law, on precedent, on the principle that everyone, even heroes, must answer for their actions. District Attorney Moreno filed formal charges: kidnapping in the first degree, custodial interference, violation of a protective order. Cole would stand trial, and a jury would decide whether justice meant following the letter of the law or honoring its spirit. The trial lasted 6 days, though it felt like 6 months to everyone watching. Cole's defense attorney, a woman named Margaret Blackwell, who'd taken the case pro bono after seeing the news coverage, built her case around a single principle: necessity. The necessity defense argues that breaking the law is justified when it prevents greater harm, when every legal option has been exhausted, when the choice is between action and catastrophe. She presented the evidence methodically: the 911 call that had been buried, the hospital report that had been ignored, the restraining order that had been weaponized to silence the only people watching, the systematic failure of every institution designed to protect children. She argued that Cole hadn't acted rashly or violently. He'd tried the legal system first. He'd reported to CPS, to the hospital, to the police. He'd